today we are privileged and honored to have a gentleman who is going to take us through men's mental health, but he's not just a mental health champion. There's a lot to him. In the house tonight, we have Mr. Collin Babirukamu. Collin has spent 25 years blazing trails in the IT space and currently serves as the Executive Director of IT at the Bank of Uganda. Besides leading cutting-edge initiatives in IT, he's a proud husband and father of 4 with a great passion for uplifting men's mental well-being. The loss of his younger brother ignited a profound journey of soul-searching and deep reflection, inspiring Collin to take a deeper dive into the world of men's mental health advocacy. Today, he merges his technical expertise with heartfelt dedication to supporting both men and the women who stand beside them as compassionate allies, partners, and advocates in finding strength, support, and hope, and the hope in a world that too often encourages silence and stoicism. Ladies and gentlemen, Collin Babirukamu. We also have someone going to do the moderating this evening, Mr. Julius Buchana, a media expert, and he's quite vast in this area. So I'll hand over to Julius to moderate the evening's discussion. You're welcome, Julius.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone listening to us right now, from wherever you're listening to us from. Both online and physical here, glad to meet you virtually and also physical. My name is Julius Buchana, journalist, also a career diplomat, but also a communicator. This is something that mental health is something that is really buzzing all over the world, and everybody is making sure that everyone is okay besides men. And tonight we're digging into the wellness of men, and not just men, but people who run the show all over the world. As we go on to the discussions of the day, allow me also to note that our day's discussion will have some, I don't know how to call it right now, but if you go to menti.com, you'll be putting in a code of 6202-5583, and you'll be getting your discussions right there, and also be putting questions right there for you to put in your opinions, and we want to generalize and direct on the discussion tonight. The bio for Mr. Collin Babirukamu has been read, so I don't want to delve into that right now. Let me just go straight to Mr. Collins and ask him what mental health means to you in deeper version.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And first of all, thanks, Julius. And I want to thank the Old Bodonians Club for the invitation to be here. So I think the poster was interesting because it mentioned that I was the accidental advocate for men's mental health. And I think it sort of speaks a lot to that, because I'm not a mental health expert, of course. I must say that from the onset. I'm an IT guy and making sure that your economy is running fine. But I basically got into this mental health space in possibly a very difficult way. I first of all, if you asked me 2 years ago if I would be seated here talking about mental health and men's mental health, I would possibly bet and say no way. I would not be talking about, I'd be happy to be talking about artificial intelligence, talking about digital and emerging technology. But mental health for me has become personal, because maybe just getting into how I got into it was really that more than a year ago, very unfortunately, I lost my younger brother to circumstances that were very complicated. It was a Friday like this, a little more than a year ago. we got a text message as a family, and my brother was sending a goodbye message. And remember, he was as normal as can be from what you see on the outside. And that's the thing about mental health. He was the happy guy. He was the excited guy, the guy who was looking forward to closing a couple of deals and things. But then, and we had lunch actually about maybe about a week ago, a week before that. So on a Friday like this, John sends a text message to us, and it's actually a really goodbye message. He says he's done his best and he just can't take it anymore. I was far off that time. I have a group of guys. Actually, I think half of those guys are Bodonians. I do life with them. They are like a safe space for me. We've been doing life for about 25 years, and we had gone away. We call it an AGM. We go away every year, and we're on an island somewhere. We're just going men only, just talk and chat. And I got a phone call, a distress phone call from my mother that said, look at the message from your younger brother. I got right onto the group, and it was clearly a goodbye message. Frantically, I began to call. I began to call and try to reach out to him. That did not yield much. He wasn't picking up. He wasn't. I couldn't get any response from that phone call. It was a very, very frantic, difficult time. We began to employ all sorts of methods using the some of our technology and the security personnel, and we kind of zeroed down on the general area where he was. And no sooner had we begun to zero down, we actually got the news, the very, very, very sad news that he had passed away by suicide. And I kind of want to set the stage by being clear that he took his own life. And this is sort of the gravity of unchecked, untapped, or unhelped mental health challenges. And because we didn't see anything of that coming. And so anyway, we were frantic. I had tried to get from the island. Luckily, a friend of mine, graciously sent a private boat. I got here in time, but I was totally, I could say my head was off completely. So I left my boys behind. I asked them to stay specifically behind because we always meet to talk about life. And I felt like life had just happened, but the boys needed to stay back and talk. And I actually asked them, I gave them the permission to stay back and just continue while I got to terms with what was happening. So in short, I could tell you a bit more about that, but we got back and the reality hit. I don't think our lives have been the same, Julius. It's been 1 year. He was a brilliant young man. He was a digital enthusiast. He'd have been happy to set up all these gadgets for us and make the online process work. He was possibly at the top of his game in terms of digital marketing. And we didn't see any signs. We didn't understand the signs. And I think that's why we're here right now. The more we talk about these things, the better, the more the awareness. 1.5 years ago, I was completely naive about finding, looking, and understanding the signs of depression and mental health challenges. So in a short way, in a short sort of span, we were delved into this, and accidentally, I have been into this mental health advocacy, trying to tell as many men, as many people as possible about the challenge that we have here right now.
All right, thank you, Collin.
Yeah.
A week before John took his life, I met him at Katikati.
Wow.
We had an event called the PR Fundi, and he was a guest speaker right there. And we had scheduled a meeting, me and him, to come to Victoria University to take us through digital marketing. And that evening, when I saw a poster from Ian Romanyika, I got a little bit shocked because the person I was chatting with a day ago, couldn't imagine he's gone. But everybody was puzzled about how John took his life. But that aside, navigating men's mental health in a changing world, our topic or sub-themes would be the triggers and taboos, wallets and worries. Everybody who listens to most mental health enthusiasts understands that many triggers are there.
Yeah.
But there are people who can talk about these triggers and people understand them better. I want to understand and get your perspective from an angle of a father. What does manhood mean to you?
Manhood, wow. I think as a father, I see manhood being a provider. And I think that's sort of the traditional sense of it. A father being a protector, a father being a priest, and a father being a partner, because hopefully there's a present mother also. So I think those are the four facets that I see, and of course that comes with all the pressures that come along with trying to be the man and the man in the house. So that's how I see manhood, and especially in the father space. It's been 18 years of fathering now. I've got a daughter going to university, so I'm still learning how it works. But it does come with its own pressures, and I'll be happy to talk about what I think are really, really, really the triggers that have been pushing people to some of the ages that we're talking about.
Okay, Collins, the issue of gender in mental health could be a discussion everybody wants to actually tap on each and every day. Do men still want to be talked about in terms of mental health? I posted this post somewhere, and people say, we are okay, we don't need this discussion.
Yeah.
We are very okay. We don't want to be a weakling.
Yeah.
Because the Bible even deters us to call ourselves weaklings.
Weaklings, yeah.
Do you think a discussion about mental health should be centered around gender?
The fact that this is like focused on men, is that what you mean? I think we may have been, I think these are the taboos we're going to talk about also. People think that men have got it together. The question is, do we really have it together? Do we really have it together? If you talk to men, and I'll probably read a message of somebody that sent me a message this morning. They knew I was coming here. A man, a very good friend of mine. I think I should read the message. It's really telling you the story of what men are going through out there. It's true, we don't want to position ourselves as weak. We don't want to position ourselves as struggling. It's understandable. But I think there's been such a strong focus in helping women. Women talk. Women actually have support groups that are almost organic and happening. But men, there's been this taboo feeling of why should I present myself as weak, like you mentioned. And the more that you don't seek help, I think the health specialists have said that men have a very poor health-seeking behavior. Did you know, for instance, Julius, that men passed away most during COVID compared to women? Did you know, for instance, that out of 4 suicides in the world, 3 are men? 75% of the suicides globally in the world are actually men. So it tells you that there is a need for us to give this some focus. But I also wanted to sort of bring this back to center. In mental health, someone may ask, what is this whole mental health thing? Because I can tell you, 2 years ago, I would have asked the same question. And I wanted to understand, what is the fuss about mental health? What's the fuss about having discussions? Is it really relevant right now? Should we talk about money? Should we talk about cars, politics, and the war that's going on in the Middle East? But this is a pandemic. And I'll be happy to break down some statistics on what's happening globally. But there was a mental health, and quickly, there was a mental health study from Butabika, as well as Lancet, where they actually identified that 1 out of 3 Ugandans were struggling with mental health challenges. So in this room, we're about 9 people. It means that we have how many? We have at least 3 people who are struggling, and maybe not even knowingly. And the people watching who don't even know right now that they're struggling with mental health issues. So I'll probably try to help unpack this, because it's easy to imagine that mental health is the challenge you see in Butabika only, or I lived in Luzira for a long time. We used to see the people who would escape from Butabika, the patients, unfortunately. So in our minds, we thought that is the mental health. Mental health is a lot more. And I'll be breaking down what it really means, because it's emotional. So mental health really is emotional, psychological, and social well-being of somebody. Just your social well-being. So the absence of that is actually having mental health challenges. And it's really responsible for how we make decisions, the stress, how we manage stress, the stress levels that we manage, and how we even relate to others. So mental health is much, much wider than people can imagine. And I'll tell you, for instance, as a fact, men need to have a more focused discussion. You talked about gender. I think we have been told to be a man. I remember losing somebody very close to my family, and somebody told me, Collin, don't cry. You have to be a man. That's the story that is told to everybody. Just bottle it up. But I will tell you, if you listen to men, they have been bottling it up for a long time. It's now spilling over. I don't think I could have seen my young brothers, I didn't see it because everybody puts up a good show. I think Ugandans are.
And it seemed like it was okay.
He seemed okay, right? A week before, I also had lunch with him. Apart from the big brother discussion, you're asking how are things? Is there a babe in your life? How are the finances? How are things going? You're just tapping on different topics to see how things are going. But most men say they are okay. How are you is a greeting now. How are you? I'm fine. Really? You're fine? Or do we need to tap a little deeper into the how are you question? So maybe just to answer you, and I'll go a bit deeper into mental health if you allow me. But for now, we need to give men the space to talk because there is a challenge. During COVID, for instance, there were suicides during COVID. And these were entrepreneurs. There was one in Nigeria, for instance, that I was following, a very rich young man. So mental health is not for the poor, by the way. That's some of the things the myths we must kill. Mental health is not just for people who are either financially struggling. I know we'll probably talk about the finances, but you can just get a sense of hopelessness, a sense of unfulfilled dreams, and there are triggers that we'll talk about that really take us to that edge. So men, yes, need to talk about mental health more than we did. I think it's time to have a talk on mental health and not just football and girls and money. I think we need to talk. We need to have this discussion. Yes. So I'll break it down further.
Participants, just go on to mention the form and identify your gender, be the male or female, or you prefer not to say anything. But also, you would also tell us your speaks on most of the themes tonight, the triggers, taboos, and financial stresses, but also one word that describes how you are feeling about your own mental health status this evening, and what's your biggest worry right now. Mentee.com will be 67025585. Just put in that code and it will be all onto there. And we shall be reading all that as we are going on to this discussion. Let me ask you something. Yeah. If you go on to the second theme of this very discussion, my money is my money and his money is our money. How do you relate to that? You say you've been married for 20 years?
I've been married for 20 years now.
For 20 years.
And my wife is seated here. So so I can't begin forging things now. I have to be authentic. And I want to stay married. So I've got to make sure I'm authentic as possible. My money is what?
My money.
That's the wife speaking now?
Yes.
That's the wife speaking. It's our money. Yeah, I mean, I hear that a lot. And we've spoken to many friends who are getting married sometimes about that model.
That will relate to wallets and worries.
Yes. I will tell you that I don't know if I think it works for some people. But we have found, at least I'll speak for myself, my wife who is here, luckily, now I can't speak, she's right here, is that for the 20 years, we've decided to work as a partnership. We've said that our money is our money and your money is our money. So basically, you bring and I bring, it doesn't take away the fact that I'm the provider, that I'm still the man in the house, that I'm still the one that's supposed to take full responsibility. But my wife is also educated. My wife has been groomed. Her father is Budonian, her brothers are Budonian. She's really an OG of Budo. So in many ways, I mean, she's educated. She is a woman of means. She's a woman that has taken time to study and bring her bit home. So we found that it's easier to work together. But let me do this, Julius. Let me sort of bring home the mental health element of the financials, if that's okay, because this is the wallet and the trigger. Let me sort of tie this together. First of all, let me read a message from a friend of mine this morning, so that I don't forget this. My friend of mine said to me that the death of John, and it was a message this morning, the death of John touched many, but not more than it touched me. I had never met him, and at the time of his death, I was going through a similar predicament, and contemplated the same action a number of times. Okay? Seeing the news on social media helped me snap out of that dark place. I remember going to the bathroom at work and wailing like a baby for John and people like me, okay? I saw the demon that was standing before me and had tormented me for a while that day and resolved to fight with all my might. I know we lost John, but in a strange way, I know he saved me and many like me who now have a chance to hear the testimonies and know they are not alone. I mean, there are people out there, Julius, who are struggling, but we've been told, don't talk about it, bottle it up. You don't look good by talking about your weakness. And I can tell you the first trigger that I want to really mention to you guys is actually debt and finance. I talked about wallets, right? And I want to talk about this in a way that maybe, if you allow me, I want to call them the 4Ds that I've mentioned before to some people. And I want to call them, they have three brothers called the 3As. And it's just to be rememberable. So you're right, wallets, finances are possibly the number one topic that we need to handle. I think that many men that I have met have actually struggled majorly because of the first D, right? Debt. And debt could just mean financial distress. I don't know any other top trigger that men globally are going through. And there are many triggers, by the way. But debt is like total number one. I think many people have been obviously living beyond their means, but also many have just had setbacks in their businesses. COVID-19 did not help. There are people who are still struggling from the COVID-19 pandemic. There are businesses that never recovered from that time. Would you believe that during the COVID-19 pandemic, many clinics, or rather mental health centers, were shut down and units in hospitals so that COVID-19 patients could be housed there? So they shut down mental health units to house COVID-19. But in the meantime, the lockdown was exacerbating and worsening the mental health issue. So people were sick, people passed on, there were expenses on health, businesses were crumbling. I think our mental health issue actually worsened. I was reading statistics that said that actually the mental health globally, the problem that we're having, is a pandemic now, at pandemic levels, went up by 25% during the pandemic. So people are struggling with debt. And it's often not necessarily they are making, but it's circumstances that happen and you're struggling and you must pay back. So you find many men struggling, and that's maybe the number one trigger, Julius. And I think we'll talk about it deeper maybe if they're Q&As, but men sitting up at night. If wives tell you their stories, you'll be amazed. There are men who sit up at 3 a.m. Everybody's sleeping, but at 3 a.m. the man is thinking. He's wondering how tomorrow is going to go. And I can tell you, yeah. she needs to get the microphone and she needs to get the microphone and testify, because I can tell you that you find that you're thinking. Everybody else is probably asleep, but you're thinking, how do I crack this? How do I wing it? Everyone is hustling, trying to make it work. So I think financial has been a challenge. Now there are layoffs. I was working in an agency, we'll talk about rationalization. Husbands are losing jobs. USAID workers have lost jobs. UNRWA workers have lost jobs. What are husbands supposed to do? So I can tell you that the mental health challenge is much bigger than we imagine. And mental health is basically, I keep using an acronym, SAD. I'll come back to the 4Ds. SAD, right? And SAD, in a sense, is I keep saying that we have sad men, SAD, because SAD is stress, anxiety, and depression. There are many men who are sad, who are anxious and depressed. I know we're talking about men today. I'm sure this speaks to the women also. But there are many sad men walking around, especially because of the financials. They are stressed. I mean, how much can you tell your old boys to lend you money on the group? You go to the old Bodonians club, they will even disrespect you, by just mentioning your financial problems. So where do you run to? You go to your family, they get tired of you. You borrow to pay somebody else. You borrow from one person to pay another person. And there are many people in that loop. So depression begins to kick in. So debt is a depression trigger. I'm going to walk to another. A second D, basically, is divorce. All right? Allow me to just sort of go through this. Divorce is a second trigger. And I won't say divorce, but let me say relationships. And why I've been taking time to study this was I was trying to study, why did John struggle at that time of his life? John was turning 40 a few months ahead, just a few months turning 40. We'll talk about this 40 mark that can be a bit of a challenge. We need to talk about it and unpack it a little bit. But he was turning 40, he was single. During the COVID time, of course, he was alone. Many people would be locked down and in their apartments alone. So I don't know what really happened in that season. There could have been some financial distress also. I mean, I got to sort of investigate a bit more. So often you find that people get to the cliff after multiple things come in. He also could have had some relationship problems, all right? I can't go too deeply into that, but so it's usually a cocktail of things building up. So the first D was debt. The second D is divorce, but divorce really means relationships. And I can't underscore and overplay that card. You all know that broken hearts, failed expectation, people struggling with their esteem, because, every time you say, you make a proposal, she says no. You move to another girl, she says no. And you're wondering what's going on. Why am I not where I am? Yeah, and then you're hanging with some friends who are talking about how they are taking their kids to French school and whatever. And you're thinking, I'm getting to 40. Why hasn't this happened for me? And oftentimes there's a lot of thinking and introspection, but relationships can be a challenge, right? So let me, you can notice that I'm glossing over these things. I'm sure we'll unpack them if there is time. The third D is disease, is another trigger, all right? Disease is a major, major trigger. People have silent sickness and diseases that they can't talk about. They are battling them, but they can't talk about them. I can tell you very few men would put up their hands and tell you what they're struggling with, right? It's not to be mental also. I was talking to people maybe about 6 months ago, and it was a church setting. And the guy who was leading, and he was such a great leader. We all look up to him, and it's wonderful. But he tapped me and picked the microphone and said, guys, thank you, Collin, for speaking. I must tell all of you right now, I am your leader, but I am on medication right now. I'm struggling with mental health. You could not have told. You could not have got any idea that he was struggling, because he was in his element. He looked good. He was well. So there are many good-looking people struggling with silent diseases, things they can't talk about. Society will not take them lightly, and so they're struggling. That's the third, right? It's the third area. And then the fourth one is basically death. Okay, this is a bit of a hard one of those taboo discussions. But death is really around grief. And look, I've been through grief. I just mentioned that's how I opened up. That's how I got here. That's how I'm the accidental advocate for men's health. Grief can kill you. You've lost somebody, but you can actually die if you don't get help from that loss. And I can tell you for a fact that grief and death are areas we hardly talk about. How to deal with grief. Today, I'm a little more sensitive with people who lose their loved ones because I've been through it. And I can tell you, you need help to come out of grief, because it's a natural process. There are 5 stages of grief, and the 4th stage is depression. You almost will have to get depressed. You almost have to go through that cycle. So you typically begin by denying. So if people came and they came to the funeral service, I mean, I didn't cry. I was a man. I looked like I was okay. You're often in denial during grief. You think you've got it together. The second major step is you get into anger. You get angry by the situation, by what's happening around you. All right? And you can't even unpack it, but you're angry. I was, for instance, very angry. And I had mixed feelings of anger, of the betrayal. Can you imagine? I had feelings of embarrassment, because I mean, suicide is socially, nobody takes it lightly. John's death was in the news all over Kampala. It was on the TVs. It was in the social media. It was trending in Nigeria, trending in South Africa. I got calls from Nairobi, my former workmates. I got calls from everywhere, because so it was one, I was angry, and it's a natural process that you go through. But then I was also a bit embarrassed by it socially. You're struggling with, my family is now in the news for the wrong reasons. So it was a tough one. So anyway, but the fourth step is depression. People who are going through grief actually go through depression. They wonder why they are lethargic. They wonder why they never get out of bed. Sometimes, people in grief just stay in the house. So if you're looking to help a friend, help them, go check on them, talk with them, have the ministry of presence. Just be with them. You don't have to talk too much, but just be there. Take them away from their rooms and their houses, because many people in depression will just stay in the house.
Grief.
Yeah.
3 years ago, I lost my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the warning letter that pushed me away from depression.
The what?
The warning letter for my job.
Oh.
I almost lost my job.
Really?
Because it was too much for the family. And because I was the anchor of all her life.
Yeah.
The passwords, the ATMs, name them, land titles, properties. And when she died, everybody was looking for these things, and I was having them in the house for me.
Yeah.
And they went to court, put caveats on everything, and I had them. But until my boss said, I'm going to fire you.
Wow.
If you don't up your game, I'm losing a lot of, your KPI is just stuttering.
So you have to get up.
I had to wake up and be like, you know what, she's gone. I need to carry on with my life. So glad you're speaking about this.
Yeah. No, grief is some, it almost needs a whole talk show of its own. Because I'm telling you, unpacking grief and managing grief and coming out of grief, it can take years. The last step after depression is you begin to accept it. I don't know what level you're on right now, but at some point you accept the loss. And it's funny about death and grief. The next day, 2 days, basically the music fades. Okay, the DJ shuts down his music in the compound. The tents go down. The friends drive away. You're in the house alone. You begin to face the reality of the loss. Your young brother won't call again. He will not text again. He won't walk in through the door. The family meeting will happen and he won't be present. This person is gone. The weddings have to take place. It's a strange thing. You go to Barry and whenever you're driving back, there are actually weddings happening. There are birthdays happening and life has to go on. But that's the challenge. So if you're not helped quickly in that time, and I can tell you the person that really helped us was Bishop Zach Nirinjie. Bishop Zach called us as a family and began to counsel us about mental health. I had no clue. Can you imagine? I have been studying, I don't know how many degrees, whatever. I did not understand mental health. And I can tell you there are many people on this call, or there are many people who are listening or out there who don't understand the gravity of mental health. So he explained to us mental health, explained to us what John must have been going through and how he got to that edge and tipping point. And that really helped us. You need help in the first 24 hours, they say, for you to actually do better in your grief. If you are let loose in those, not in 24 hours, you can actually struggle with grief. So I think I'm at a point now where I'm still slowly healing. It's a healing process. There's no magic around grief. But one of the things I thank God for is a power of faith. So I want to just close by saying there's a last D, okay? The fourth D, because we could talk all evening, but the last D is basically you have, so we talked about death. Yes. And death. Oh, we did all four. So all four. So we talked about the brothers who are the three, the three A's. And allow me to just talk about this because I think it touches on sort of where, slightly an area that we have not talked about a lot. John was turning 40, and I want to speak to men and women who are 30 years, going to 40 and going above. And I'm in that bracket now. I'm over 40, right? For men, and I'll talk to the men right now, there's a particular stage that we call andropause. Okay, so these are 3 A's. I'm going to talk about the 3 A's very quickly, and I wrote them because I want them to be memorable and easy for the people who are listening.
Listening in and you
Yeah. And I'll make it easy because andropause is really, and of course my wife is a doctor, so I first heard it from my wife, and then I began to search and understand what is this andropause. Andropause is really male menopause. Okay, does that help? It's basically women. We have always understood women. So women go through menopause. Okay, they get cold flashes. It has hot flashes and all the things and the hormone imbalances. Exactly, you got it. So even for andropause, it's basically what I would call a male menopause. It's basically a gradual decline of your androgens, which are hormones, especially testosterone, which is actually a male hormone. Now, I know where I'm going right now, okay? So it basically means that you have low testosterone right now. You're struggling with low libido, okay? So your ability to beat and satisfy your partner is a challenge, okay? Now, it's a gradual decline. It doesn't impact all men, but I want to talk about this because I thought it's one of those brothers I needed to bring with the 4Ds, andropause, and please do some homework on andropause. Somebody could type that in the chat room and have that. People could talk about it. Andropause is really ANDO and then P with pause, like pausing. Androgens and pause. Yeah. So PAUSE, right? So and so you find that there is a real challenge. You have people struggling with this is a bit okay, it's a bit personal and deep, but let me understand this for people to understand out there that men around 30 to 40 sometimes who are going through andropause now begin to struggle with erectile dysfunction. And I want to tie that back to mental health. I'm sure you know where I'm going right now. Okay. So you have erectile dysfunction, your hormones are going through a difficult one. I'll tell you that it's not everybody goes through it. This is possibly it's a steady decline of testosterone at a percentage of about 1% per year. So it's a very slow appearance that it comes. Not every man actually experiences the symptoms. And the symptoms are basically depression and anxiety. So many men are wondering why, instead of their lives, they're struggling, they're depressed and anxious. They accord it to aging, but actually andropause has kicked in. And for some, it has kicked in very early. Yeah.
One's libido is in the wallet, it's not true.
I think there are many facets. So I think libido could have multiple facets. It could have, but you're right. When you're broke, it's a problem, right? I don't know how deep you want to go on but yes, when you're broke, there is a challenge. But again, all those things go back to the mental health, right? So we're talking about the triggers and also the wallet. All right. So you're right. When you're broke, yes, libido is down. But sometimes your libido is down also because you're going through andropause. But nobody has told us about andropause. Nobody has broken down this andropause thing. Many during andropause, well, not, by the way, not everybody goes through it. Like I said, about 20% of men really experience it. So there's some others who will say, I am 60, I've never experienced it. I'm still like a Ferrari. I'm still doing fine. Everything is good.
When you look at the people in the village, a lot of money.
Yes.
They have more kids.
They have kids.
Even at 60, my uncle is 75 and has a baby of 4 years.
Yeah.
75.
Yeah.
And a baby of 4 years.
Yeah. But you know, of course, making babies doesn't equate to having a high libido also. I mean, at that one time, you could still drop the child, but you've struggled for 6 months. But I don't think we want to go deeply in that, but I think men in andropause really have mood swings. They struggle with mood swings. They struggle with irritability. And I'm hoping some men are now thinking, am I irritable? Am I struggling with mood swings? They have poor concentration at work many times. And all this going, I'll take it back to mental health. This really has mental health issues. Memory loss, memory fog. Your children come down and you begin naming all the 6 before you get the name. Okay? Those have a lot of sticker notes in their offices. Yeah, with their passwords. It comes with age. But generally, I'm trying to say that men, we've talked about menopause for the women, but nobody really spent time telling us about the challenges that come with nearing 40 and the troubles of andropause. So we even get cognitive problems at that age. Just cognitive, your memory loss, you're struggling with thinking. So now all of that stuff, erectile dysfunction, mood swings, now even impacts your social life. It impacts your esteem. Most of the men who are going through andropause that hasn't been helped, or they haven't identified it and begun to do things actively, actually even pull away socially. They isolate themselves more. So you have a Bade in the old Buddhist club, but it's now quiet. It doesn't post anymore, doesn't appear for all the meetings, and you wonder what's going on. He just withdraws. So there's a general withdrawal. Unfortunately, it also comes with fatigue, It comes with loss of energy, a bit of weight gain, sometimes in the central areas, and social withdrawal and embarrassment. It can be a real challenge. Sleep disorders. There are men who don't sleep. I was talking to a couple of friends of mine who told me we're struggling with sleep. They were posting and saying, so these are the kind of discussions you have when you're over 40. You're talking, guys, any tips on how to sleep? On how to sleep well. How do I get 7 hours of clean sleep? And it is true, because it's a stage that we are going through. So I just thought sleep disorders, and about 25% of the men only really go through this who are over 40. But there's some remedies that I want to just talk about this quick, and then I go to the others. They are basically, people now can get something called TRT, and it's something that only professionals can help you do, which is basically a testosterone replacement therapy, or TRT. And you actually can be, but you have to be very careful, apparently. If you self-medicate, many men have got heart attacks. Have you heard about sudden heart attacks, clots, and different issues, self-medication, trying to boost their energies? And so we've got to be careful how we do that treatment. There's also another thing that we must do for andropause. It's basically a lifestyle change, complete lifestyle change. I keep telling my friends, we need to walk more. We need to exercise more. These bodies need to exercise. See, if you're not mobile, you're not exercising, you will actually struggle more in this andropause season. So go about and exercise. A balanced diet, right? Adequate sleep. It's a technique. I mean, finding sleep is almost a skill. Get off the gadgets 3 hours before bedtime. Have some soothing environment, hopefully, to sleep. And of course, pay off your debts if you can, if you really want to sleep. Because there are those phone calls from mobile money people. These days, by the way, when I'm paying mobile money, I first ask you, I put on the MTN, on Airtel. What I'm asking them to ask me is that, where do you have debts? Where are the debts? Because people these days, I can tell you, any 3 people are sending money to Julius. One of them is probably indebted. And they'll tell you, no, to take a Airtel, take a MTN, awoninawe visible, already intawanya. Why? People are indebted. So how do they sleep? So if there's a way you could manage your lifestyle and begin to pay off the debts, I think you'll sleep better. Anyway, you can go for therapy, but one of the things I'll tell you is that we need to pray more, and I'll talk about that maybe later if we have. Now, so awareness is also key, right? The more people are aware about andropause, I think you can hardly talk about it. We need specialists, and I see some really good specialists logged in actually on Zoom right now who can break down this whole andropause thing. And it's a phase that if men fully understood, they would not be anxious about turning 40. They would not be anxious about the self-reflection that comes at 40. Because at 40, you begin to reflect on your life. Imagine you're on the Obdonians Club, on the group, and boys are posting about their Mercedes-Benzes. They are posting about the beach house they just got. They are posting about how they've just finished the PhD. Some guys, Bononians, are now working at NASA. You look at your life and say, what happened to me? We're in the same class. We're in Nigeria house. We are now here together, but we are worlds apart. It happens around this time. A lot of self-reflection. You're wondering, where did you get it wrong? If you don't get help, if you don't get men who can talk with you and have an honest chat about life and how to forge life together, you could lose it. And I have a feeling that my kid brother did not have a very good social fabric, I'll tell you. And I asked him a week before that, I said, so who are your friends? And he stammered. Who do you hang with? Because I couldn't tell. He was introverted. And that can be a challenge. I mean, he had loud laughter, happy, but he was isolated and private. That can be a challenge. Let me go to the other 2 A's because I need to close that bit. The other second A is basically alcohol use disorder. We all know this one, right? Yeah. So it's called AUD, or alcohol. Let's call it alcohol abuse. Okay? But it's a disorder of its own. And sometimes we are blaming all these guys who are perpetually drunk. I drive through Kampala and you find a guy on a Tuesday morning staggering on the road at 8 a.m. Everybody is getting productive and going to work. They are staggering on the road. It could be a problem. I know we, as a society, we just go out and blame them and judge them. There could be things that are in the back end that we need to discuss and talk about. All of us here, I'm sure, can carefully think and look back and say, I have a friend who's struggling. I have a family member who's struggling with alcohol use. But I'll tell you this, World Health Organization, the World Bank, both reported Uganda's problem. It's like pandemic levels. It's serious levels. Excessive alcohol usage and consumption is actually greater than most sub-Saharan African countries, the alcohol use disorder that we have. Now, I'm going to talk about just our typical four cousins, 7.5% alcohol content, right? That's your ethanol content. Or you have Amarula or something at 17 or whatever. I don't know what it is. So that's a joke. This report was based on pure alcohol. They said Ugandans, the report said that Ugandans, there's a record that they do 16 liters of pure alcohol per person a year.
Real Guinness.
Stronger than Guinness. 100. Stronger. Kasese. This is actually illicit alcohol, not the fancy Guinness and everything. I don't drink, unfortunately, but I don't know the levels of Guinness. Oh, fortunately. Hallelujah. Thank you. Thank you for the correction. So I was just saying that the Guinness must have a small percentage. It's called a percentage ABV, right? Alcohol, I think alcohol based on volume. But this is 100% of pure alcohol. So Ugandans take 16%, 16 liters of pure alcohol per capita, or let's say per person per year. So Ugandans are in African Cup of Nations. They are at that level. It could be World Cup levels, but at least in Africa, the reports in World Bank and WHO put us really high. And it's such a challenge. And it's a real problem because this is often illicit alcohol. And so the challenge we have here is that alcohol has become an escape for men who are struggling. So you're struggling with depression, you go to alcohol, you begin to misuse the alcohol, it then worsens the depression. So it's a cycle. And people now just go into a cycle of alcohol abuse. I want to talk about the quick beer that people take on a corner somewhere, actual misuse of alcohol. So, and of course, we have many people taking alcohol in the rural areas. Why? Because they have PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder. They have been struggling with the war-torn areas in Gulu, in the eastern region, in Karamoja, in the Congo borders and everything. There are men who have been through battles. There are husbands and men, for instance, policemen and soldiers, who have recently been taking on to using their guns on people in a bar or shooting themselves thereafter or shooting people in their own homes. Why? Because of, alcohol, PTSD, post-traumatic stress, back to alcohol. It's just a cycle that gets worse. So again, the remedies we all know, we need to seek professional help. We need rehabilitation. There are some really great rehabilitation centers that I've discovered in the last 1 year. I have also discovered that Butabika does a lot more than we thought. All of us drive by Butabika, we have no idea the impact that those guys are doing. And I can tell you, the patients and the clients of Butabika are every level. They are CEOs, they are top entrepreneurs who are there, they are ministers and politicians. I'm saying that very quietly, those are my bosses, okay? But everybody. So mental health is not for the broke guy. It's not for the struggling guy, not only for the divorced, struggling fellow. It just has spanned across different facets. So anyway, that's alcohol use disorder. Let me talk about the last A. The last A is sort of a strange one, but it speaks to some people that I thought I should still mention here. And it's basically the absence of power and planning. It's the absence of power and planning. It's the absence of power. Now, I'm talking about the thought of retirement is a loss of power. You've been in a job. So, right, I have a job right now and say you're a director and suddenly you're supposed to retire. You know what governments have right now? Governments have chapati, tea, and coffee every day. Newspapers come to your table and you have a driver, you have a secretary, you fly business class, right? You're fully fueled. There's a time I didn't know the price of fuel. I worked for NSSF at one point as one of their directors. And I can tell you, you get to a point where you don't know the price of fuel. You just get to the fuel station, you have a card, they fuel your card. If your car dies, you call, they bring another car, you pass them their dead car and move on. Now imagine that power being taken away from you. We have seen many civil servants with a short lifespan. They die a few years after retirement. No more newspapers, no more sir, welcome, sir. You know, suddenly you are nothing.
No more airtime and data.
There's no more airtime and data. There's no more free laptop. You know, you are just an ordinary guy. You go to a party and the MC doesn't even know you. And Julius, man, usually you do the MC thing, man. Please remember us wherever you are. Yeah, who is he? Who is he? That guy is the former guy. And I can tell you, you don't have a seat at the front, you have lost power. Many of those men, civil servants, leaders, have actually fallen into depression. There's a bracket of those men we have not talked about for a long time. Even now, the fear for those who are like 50, turning towards 60, the discussion around retirement just gets them unsettled. Because suddenly the perks and benefits around you are gone. So I left NSSF and I was a director. Of course, you're flying business class. Allow me to just share this with humility, right? So I moved to Nairobi and I was now I was working for Oracle, a big corporation, but the Americans do things differently. You don't fly business class. You don't bring the kajanja that you had in Kampala. You have a big corner office, you have a secretary, you have a personal printer. No, you fly economy. And economy is fine. You all get there at the same time, isn't it? But
the government.
Walking through the aisle of business class and all your colleagues are there. And I remember one of my colleagues asked me, Collin, so where are you seated? I told the guys, I'm still with you. I'm with you. So I walked through the aisle humbly to the economy class, and there's nothing wrong with economy, you know what I'm saying? But the absence of power can be a challenge. Suddenly I'm in Nairobi, nobody knows who I am. There's no secretary. I walked to the office and they told me that we do hot desking. I said, what do you mean? I said, where's my office? Say, there's no office for you. Don't worry. Here, you sit anywhere. I was like, wait. I was like, first, wait. I said, how do I get coffee? The coffee machine is right in the corner. Where's the printing? The printing is somewhere right there. How do I book a flight? Don't worry, there's a link. Just go. And it was a reality check, the absence of power. Let me tell you, I had to cancel myself. I mean, I was earning well, I was doing fine, but power had been taken away from me. Now, and so it's one of those sort of, it may not appeal to everybody, this discussion, but it's a serious reason why many civil servants have a short lifespan after retirement. If you do the numbers, many civil servants die early. Number one, their retirement is gone. And also, their retirement is gone. And you also find, I was working at NSSF, and I also discovered that many of the people we paid, actually, simply got their money, spent that money in 1 year. You have men who get their money and spend it in 1 year. They find a new wife, a young wife, at 65. They have to buy a RAV4. They begin building, and it stops at the ring beam. The man is broke, and the whole his social security is gone in 1 year. So there we are. So anyway, but the absence of power and retirement and planning is another discussion point. I thought, let me just throw these things there. Maybe they'll become discussion points for us to have, maybe in the Q&A, or even people can take them away and have a chat. Let me say this as I close this. Basically, I love, for instance, and Kabushenga is my friend, Robert, and I hope he doesn't mind that I mention his name here. I'll apologize to him after this call. I'll try to text him. But I think he has proved to us the ability for us to be resilient, even in retirement, because the absence of power can kill. Robert was running 90 kilometers recently. He posted, and I've been following him and saying, how does he do it? But I'm sure he's had to get out of the mental state of losing power. You go to a place and people don't know who you are. When I moved to Nairobi and left NSSF, there are people who would call me every day. The phone calls just go down. Nobody calls you anymore. You even call them and they say, I'll call you back. I'm a bit busy. Let me call you back. Why? Because you don't have, there's nothing in it for them now. Then suddenly I come back to a government job and now they need me. Then they call me back and say, hey, Collin, we want to just check on you. Can we have a lunch? And you're saying, wait, where have you been all this time? So the absence of power really gets people sliding into that. Allow me to just pack that. Those are the 3 A's, cousins of the 4 D's that we talked about. And I think the andropause is something that we could unpack, in another discussion. And then, of course, alcohol use disorder, and of course, the absence of power. Thanks.
Wow. If I was in a physical, I would say give it up for Collin. He was the most Quite a very insightful, well-researched conversation right here. I would ask if people have questions online, you could just forward them to me right now so they can direct. But most important, just log on to mentee.com. The code is 67025583. We'll be reading your opinions right there. These opinions will not carry your initials, neither your emails or anything. They're going to be anonymous, and we shall be reading them live and direct to have your views put aside so that we can have them mentioned so people to understand what we're delving into this very evening. We have any questions? Some on the Zoom chat. Okay. Let me just scroll through. Dan Munyeberenzi says men and boys' concerns are no longer bothered by most countries. More emphasis is on women and girls. That's very true. Thank you so much, Dan. Okay. Just go onto the chat section of the Zoom and have your question put right there. We shall be reading it here. Okay. Let me just go down. This is Ronald. Semialo says women's coping mechanisms may not work for men. Possibly these need to be interrogated and built ground up. Thank you so much, Ronald. That's very insightful. Ronald Omar as well. The stereotypes and wanting to fit in the image of real men is our biggest undoing. Many lessons to learn from women's coping mechanisms. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Omar. Okay, the 40 plus sector you've been talking about.
Middle age.
Yes. What is also a middle age, and you feel as a man you should have almost achieved your dreams. Yeah. Then you realize you are far from them, not built your house, career struggling, maybe issues with your wife, or worse, still not married. Problem. Yeah. Thank you so much, Frank.
That's good definition.
Yes. Dr. Sabrina Chitaka, the wife to the former ED and also director works of KCCA. Doctor says andropause can be a challenge, especially if coupled with NCDs, non-communicable diseases, e.g. diabetes and hypertension. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. Doctor, thank you so much for being online. We appreciate your time you spare to be with us. Philmon Nganda says, so no cash flows, marriage challenged with no intimacy, lack for outside service providers, sickness can come in quietly, no communication, then death letter with so many bills, or unfortunately via suicide. Yes, Philmon, thank you so much for that insight. Somebody says you can contact him on that number and help you at no cost. I think he's a therapist or psychiatrist. Becca Isabi, SCTV, I think that is SCTV is anti-torture organization. Okay. Yes, it's a torture organization. Oh, wow. Yes, I think they're in Kamucha right now, along Uganda cares. At a no-cost psychology counselor and a good at family counseling. I'm here to support men with my experience of over 30 years working as an OC family and children in the Uganda police. Thank you so very much, Becca. Just to read one more and then bring in poor communication, disrespect between spouses and failing to share personal challenges with people you trust has 90% caused depression, leading to suicidal idealized. And that is Becca Isabel as well. Thank you so much, Becca. We'll capture all this and we'll be reading more in our subsequent conversation. Okay. Let me also get to YouTube. When we are talking about mental health, this is Martin Onyuthi. Yeah. When we are talking about mental health, it takes me to substance abuse. But when I realized one day after undergoing a lot of issues, I lost my performance in the bedroom. Yeah. And is that related to mental? They're asking, is that related to mental?
Say that again.
He says, when we were talking about mental health, it takes me to a substance abuse. When I realized one day after undergoing a lot of issues, when I lost my performance in that four-cornered bedroom. Yeah. Is that related to mental? Okay. That is Martin on News. Okay. I think that's the question we have so far from YouTube. Yeah. Let me scroll down. Joseph Ajal says sad men walking around stressed, anxious, and depressed. Death, divorce, disease, and for these. Okay, thank you so much, Joseph. We appreciate your time. Joseph has been calling since 4 p.m. to get to the link.
Joseph inspired me on this journey.
Yeah, true. So Joseph is
he's a great
One HR consultant
Yes.
at the University, my colleague right there. We appreciate you, Joseph. In the Anglican Church, there are no prayers for a person who commits suicide.
Yeah.
What was your experience in John's case?
Okay.
I'm still struggling to forgive the local church when I lost a loved one. That's a question
sorry.
from Anne Mujisha. I think Anne Mujisha is the past president of Rotary Club of Webaja.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Anne, thank you so much. If I've got you right, give me a thumbs up on your question right here. This one says, as a mental health personnel, I want to applaud you, Colin, for explaining the concept so well. Kudos. They're appreciating you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry to put it as plain as it sounds, but many of our clergy hardly understand what goes on in one's heart. I'm sure many do not even know why you put on a collar, a cassock, and a sachet.
Just say that again.
He says, sorry to put it as plain as it sounds, but many of our clergy hardly understand what goes on in one's heart. I'm sure so many of them don't know why they put on a collar and blah, 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 blah.
Wow.
And that is from Kasule Mwesigo. We appreciate you. Everyone should seek counseling without being stigmatized. Mental health is a challenge to us. Maureen Babazi, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a question. Okay, this one says counseling is very key, but where do we find these professionals? Okay.
At least
That is
some
Catherine Mwanga. Catherine Mwanga will be answering your question right there. Okay, let me read this. Thanks, Colin, for this serious talk. How do we then manage these issues to avoid mental health?
Okay.
We have seen causes. How do we go about them? That is a question from Pius Baruga. Last one, I think, would be this. John was indeed private. He laughed out loud with many of us, but was really introverted.
Yeah.
That is still Kasule Mwesigwa, who had to put a pork on the anointed one of God. Okay.
Being honest.
All right. I think those are the questions we have right now on YouTube. We shall be reading more. Okay. We also have some questions physically here, but let me first allow him to answer these. Then we go physical.
Okay.
With one round.
So first of all, I'm really excited that we could get much interaction, even those who couldn't make it on Zoom, probably on YouTube, doing it. Just the awareness alone, Julius, I can tell you, just starting these conversations is important because it's almost a taboo to be talking about mental health for men. Honestly, we should be talking about football right now, right? But here we are talking about mental health and the silent crisis that men are going through. And when I say men, I'm hoping the women don't feel left out. But I mean, we know that men have had their own silent crisis because of what told to be men and to be tough. I think that, I think Joseph reiterated the SAD acronym around stress, anxiety, and depression. Many men are sad, they're stressed, they're anxious, and they're basically depressed. And you find that, for instance, what they mentioned, there are many remedies, and I'll get the first question if you can find the very, very first question that was asked. But I think they were asking I think around testosterone. I think it was also around the challenges that they were having in the bedroom. Yeah, I think.
Was it?
Yeah, I think I believe it's a cocktail. And look, again, we could have even professionals come on board, and I'm glad that professionals have offered their help on the group. I'm hoping you can share these contacts. But just stress, any married man, and of course this is a very detailed discussion, but every married man knows that stress impacts you in the bedroom. And these are discussions you must have. It impacts you. If you are indebted, you will not be the same guy. If you are stressed at work, even work stress, a toxic boss can affect your bedroom. You have a toxic work environment. You come home and you just cannot, you just ask for a rain check. You know, rain check. You ask and say, man, can we tomorrow? Or how about the weekend? Can we move that? And it can be such an esteem killer. Because you see, men have been designed. We have been telling women for us any day, now, we're like a switch. But when forte appears, the stress appears, alcohol abuse also kicks in, drugs and substance abuse kicks in, but especially stress. Let's talk about anxiety. Just anxiety. And that's the whole forte mark. I keep talking about 40 just to help anchor based on what my brother went through. You're just anxious that you're turning 40. I didn't understand that, but it's a midlife crisis. You feel like you should have achieved a lot by now. Your friends have built houses in the village. Your friends have a third car. They are talking about how they want to repair their German. I mean, there's just so much stress. Okay? They are assistant commissioners already. And you're wondering. So that stress alone becomes a major impact. So 40 becomes a dreaded number. And I pray, I hope that, we'll have time to really, and I'll tackle this. We need to bring hope to the men and hope to the people who are listening. That it doesn't have to be a final, it doesn't have to be the pass mark. Don't give up because you haven't met those dreams now. There's stuff to do in there. There's work that you can still put in and still make it. So we need to tell people that you can, and I'm sure you can break those two words down better than me, the Bedonians. But you can do more, and there's more time to actually come through. But I think it's clear that the bedroom will be impacted by stress, by substance abuse. So my answer is yes to that one for sure. I think those things all can become a cocktail that impact your ability in the bedroom, and it's a big issue. I know it's sort of a taboo topic. We don't like to talk about these sort of issues, but men are walking around, but they're like walking dead. Have you seen men who talk to themselves? They're walking on the street and they're talking. They are mumbling, talking. They are quarreling with themselves. They're talking. People have problems. Yeah, that's a new one. So then Anne mentioned, I think, the Anglican Church. I'm part of the Anglican Church. And honestly, I think it's not just Anglican Church. I don't know if does anybody pray for you when you go through a suicide. I don't know if there's any, maybe the charismatic churches, but traditional ones, do the Catholics do? I don't know. But I mean, we lost a brother, very sad. And I can tell you, we never imagined this would be near our home. We were brought up Christian, Sunday school, we were all in the choirs. John was a leader, youth leader. I mean, everything seemed okay and in tow, but you never understand the silent crisis that happened. But that said, when we lost John, we didn't even bother attempting to go. We didn't want to, I've been in the Anglican Church all my life. I was born, literally, baptized, confirmed. I've been a leader in the Anglican Church up to today. I didn't even want to bother to call up the Archbishop, who we could have possibly called and said, Archbishop, make an exception. You just hold with it. They came home. So we had a service at at our family home, and we had a service at our village house. And we kept it there. We didn't go to the traditional church. And guess what? Church is often thought to be a building, but church is the congregation of people. So people came to us, the priests came to us, the Archbishop of the Anglican Church came home, the bishop, the church came home. We made church at home. The Archbishop was home, the Assistant Bishop of Kampala was home, the Archdeacons of Kampala Central were home. We had church. So I don't have beef, really. I just know that that's been the way things are done, and I respect it. And it's part of the whole stigma of suicide. Suicide is just not understood by the church, not understood by society, and neither should we be condoning it anyway. And I think culture, people are trying to make sure they do not make it look okay by making it flowery. They wanted to make sure that, in fact, in some traditions, they would even, where you were, just a sad story, but where you were hanged, they would cut that rope and then even cane the body. All right? I mean, it's even the thought of it is terrible. But I think they're trying to tell the whole community around them that you should never, ever try this. So I don't think I have beef, to be honest. I've grown up in the church. We were okay for church to happen at home. We felt warm. We felt loved. We had more than 1,000 people in the compound. And I'm okay. So honestly, no beef for the traditional churches. Was there a third question?
Yes, where to get zero to where do you get this profession?
Oh, professionals. I think, look, maybe remedies also. Yes, remedies. Let's talk about the remedies, first of all. And I'm sure that, again, there are many professionals who can be posting some remedies there. I talked about number one, I think, let us believing in hope. This sounds a bit academic, right? But believing that you can still make it. Snapping out and realizing that there is more to you and to your life than the now situation. Many people make decisions on mental health, on suicide, on the present situation. But if you can look further than your current situation and believe in hope and believe that things can get better, you could snap out of that. I'm glad you came out of the bedroom after your mother's loss. You could have been sliding into depression. If it's unchecked, it is a mess.
I wasn't.
You are in depression. And it happens. Every time I've lost somebody, I tell my wife I'm struggling to get out of bed. I'm not calling it depression because it doesn't sound cool, but you're depressed. Okay? You failed to come out of bed. By lunchtime, you're fatigued again. You're back.
No, because she's in a
She knows. No, she knows. She knows. She knows what to say. She knows what to do, and she knows what's happening. So I think the major thing that we want to talk about, number one, is just have hope. Wake up and get up. Number two is a lifestyle change. If there's any message we want to tell the men today, is a complete lifestyle change. I think I've seen my friend Dr. Bennett here, who's actually a doctor, and he's saying thank you for sharing about lifestyle and diet. He's a medical doctor with the UN, and I think that's a major remedy. Basically, watch your diet, but also watch sleep disorders. All right, make sure that you have enough sleep, which is almost a skill in getting sleep, but also lifestyle in terms of walking. I tell men, if there's anything you can do now, is get out of that house, get your sneakers on, start walking. Walking has been an amazing remedy for me. During COVID, my wife and I began walking as a therapy because we were locked down. By the depression was like normal in every house. People didn't know it was called depression. Did you know that the census actually asked us, how often do you feel like you're hopeless?
Yeah, they counted you.
They did, yeah. They came home. They came home. I want to defend that agency. They came home and they asked me, how often do you get depressed? This was before this incident. I was naive. I even told the young girl, the numerator, I said, why do you ask such questions? I just thought it was a waste of our government time. How do you ask a question around my depression or feeling low? But there's an actual question in the questionnaire. All right. So I think that it's really important that we check our lifestyles there. So walking became a very big part of our life. I tell men, walk out, get a smartwatch or use your phone, make 5,000 steps. Mariska here knows that as a community in our home, we actually walk as a community. And many of my community people from Loa are on the call. And we say, let's get out of our houses and walk. We need to walk for mental health, for our own physical health. But the more you walk, it's like first of all, you have time to talk to yourself also, which is okay. You have time to counsel yourself. Right? But you talk and tell about you guy, you fake, man. What was that today? Style up. You're talking to yourself. So when you see men talk to themselves, just be easy. They could be going through some therapy of their own, yes. So I would say walk. They're having a uni meeting, basically. So yeah, but open up. Let me talk about this. Open up. Talk about it. I think open up. I wish we could tell men to talk more. To find that circle of friends. I have a circle of friends I mentioned to you. I think half of them are Budonians. We've been together for 25 years. We used to have breakfast every Saturday for all this time. I struggle to be there all the time now, every Saturday, but these men meet every Saturday and they just talk about life. Everybody needs that sort of crew that you meet, you talk and just talk men things. And if you can avoid spending your whole agenda on football and agenda on the Iran-Israel challenges. I mean, hallelujah, they are happening and it's a challenge, but talk about you. I want to be able to ask Julius, but how are you doing? I'm sure you're going to say you're fine, but then I'll ask you, but how are you actually doing? How many men get that deep question and have the permission to ask you that question? There are people in my life who should not ask me that. They come, they've been away for 3 years, and I'm wondering why you're asking me that sort of question. You haven't earned that. But if all men found a safe space where they can actually have a proper, deep discussion and they are vulnerable, and you must be willing to be vulnerable, by the way, to get help. You must be vulnerable. I needed to get help. After my brother passed on, I actually had some sessions. I had to talk to Bishop Zach and a couple of friends to actually just understand what I was going through. So try to get as much help as possible as the remedies. Lastly, I think I want to encourage us to really, if I ended without saying prayer, I would be a liar. I don't think I would have survived the grief that came with this loss. Because I'm telling you, Julius, people can pass on You treated your brother, he's had cancer, he's passed on. I mean, I know they're both passed on, but suicide. Somebody you saw a week ago, somebody who was fine, a public figure, he's having talks everywhere. He's a very solid guy in his industry. You didn't realize that there was a major problem. After one message, one single message, in a few seconds, the guy is gone. And you're supposed to get up, you're supposed to move on. Society is looking at you. I'd walk into rooms, by the way, and people just begin to talk.
That's the guy.
Yeah, that's the guy, his brother, and that's the guy. All right. We were on prayer meetings. We were talking, praying for us, which was wonderful. Others were gossiping, and we understood. Some people forgot that we were on groups. We were on WhatsApp groups, and they were discussing as though they understood my brother better than we did. People asked me every day, Collin, but you didn't see that coming? I didn't see it coming. And I can tell you, depression, you may not see it coming. Men have learned how to mask how they do it. So talk. And the last analogy I want to give you is my VW. I had a Volkswagen Golf 3. You know what a VW Golf 3 is? It was a fancy car in the early 2000s. So I bought a Volkswagen, and actually a Bodonian bought it from me, right? But this Volkswagen was beautiful. It was nice. I had gone to Ramzan. I was a young man working with the World Bank project. I got cash. I walked into Ramzan. Ramzan is still there. I think it's still there. I went and paid cash, drove out with a VW. That VW began to die on me. The mechanics couldn't find what the issues were. They began bypassing all the sensors. It was a nightmare, but it looked good. Okay? So I was driving that VW. The whole world loved me, felt like they wanted to be me. I hated what I was experiencing. I can tell you many people are like that today. They're on social media, posturing the good things. They posture the bill they're going to have, they posture the beach. They're not telling you the true story. So I'm not deceived, by the way, by social media. My young brother's job was to make people look good on social media. He was a digital media expert. But imagine he was struggling with his own issues, but he had the ability to help others project a good image. So I think some of the biggest issues we have are not having honest conversations. So for me being here and talking about such a deeply personal issue, I really have nothing to lose, Judas, right now. I have been through some bottoms right now, and I have realized that the best I can do right now is just talk. If we can help one guy listening, by the way, Judas, just one. Maybe not everybody will understand this situation. Just one guy. Yeah, if one guy can be helped, one guy can snap out. If we could speak to one guy and say, can you come out and don't do it, don't jump, don't lose it, I think we'll have managed to do what we want to do. So I think for me, it's the power of prayer that came in very, very handy. And the power of prayer was powerful. And I think lastly, as part of the remedies is that the more you talk about it, by the way, the greater the healing. So the more I talk about such things, by the way, it's a bit selfish right now. I also feel like I'm healing right now, because the more I'm helping somebody, the more somebody hears a story, the more somebody hears a testimony, and they snap out of their situation, I can tell you that we're all getting better. I'm getting better, but somebody's getting better. So the messages I got this morning for me told me, let's keep talking. Let's keep having these conversations. It doesn't matter how uncomfortable, uncool it feels. You're now undressing your family challenge here, but if it can help one other guy be saved, people have done well.
Okay. Yeah. Before we go physical, let me just read Alex Besigua's comment right here. This is Teams, right? This is Zoom. Okay. I have been living with bipolar disorder for over a decade. Thank you for creating these spaces for us men to talk about mental health openly. I encourage all men to speak out because vulnerability is a weakness. About courage, weakness is when you keep quiet and break down at the last days. Mental illness is real, but you can live a fulfilled life like I have. But we need to stop stigmatizing mental health, and talk openly about it. To some, like me, it is genetical, but like they say, the genes load the gun and lifestyles pull the trigger. That's very, very true. Now, somebody has a question here. How do you counsel or advise the 40++ without appearing to be very inquisitive and pestering? I think that's a very good question for the andropause, for you to really answer. Let me now go physical. Thank you so much. That was Mwesigo, I think. Yes, Besigua. Yes, thank you so Besigua. The question is coming from Olive Kamuri. Let me get the questions physical here. You mentioned your name.
Farouk Chawanga. Really, my question has just been asked.
Okay.
Because we talked about, we've unpacked a little bit.
Yeah.
And some of what we have unpacked today includes the symptoms.
Yes.
And my question was, how do you then deal with that kind of scenario without being too intruding that person? Because sometimes if you then decide to keep pestering the person, how are you feeling and how are you?
They actually pull away.
They actually pull away, and probably you're making it worse. Probably that if you can unpack some ideas on that angle.
Okay.
That would be great.
Okay.
Thank you, Farouk. Farouk looks the senior here. And that's why
the
you
president.
Yeah. Mine is a question regarding your experience to do with someone asked a question about where they get the services from.
Yeah.
And my experience growing up in Uganda too, that we think of mental health, well, we don't think of it as mental health really. We think of people have issues and the Butarika specifically has a stigma of, I'll give my personal experience.
Yeah.
Anyone who sent to Butarika in my world when I was growing up was someone was running.
Yes. That's what we all thought, yes.
Yeah. And that has generally been the story around Butarika. I've dealt with very many professionals who work there now, so I know what's happening there. But unfortunately, the stigma still prevails.
Yes.
And also, the other places where people can get support are not really publicized that much. So when someone is thinking of getting help, when they think of Butarika and immediately the image comes. I don't know about the
I know the feeling. I know what you mean.
So I don't know what your experience has been that, but also thinking about preventative measures. When we think of mental health, like the question Mr. President has asked, is more, how do I tell Julius is going through a problem and I want to help him? However, I want to think about it from the other perspective of, if it is I who is going through a certain experience, would we recommend that maybe the way people go for their annual checkups or the way you're supposed to visit a dentist twice a year, that we normalize the idea of actually visiting a therapist at least once a year. I recently listened to a story of a YouTuber that I follow. And he's a grown man, like about 35 or 36. And he's only just recently gotten diagnosed with ADD.
Wow.
And someone watched him on his channel and told him, because they were talking about mental health as well, and told him, you have ADD.
Okay.
And this guy was like,
you need to break down those acronyms.
No chance. So he told him, go visit a professional and let them do the assessment.
Yes.
And he came back, he had the disorder. Attention disorder. And from there, he got the medication. And the story he was telling is that he had struggled with many things in his life, but it was normal to him to have these troubles. So he had adjusted his life around.
Just accommodate it.
And then he takes the medication for the first time as far as he can remember. He had a peaceful sleep.
Wow. Right.
And it's then that
because he got help.
That. So
thank you so much. Say your name? Edwin. Thank you so much, Edwin. The others apart from Edwin, who are having questions, let's not be just speakers. Let's ask questions. Yes.
Helen.
The microphone. Yes, Helen.
Thank you very much for the talk.
You could come first.
In the same field with John. So PR. So we're very, I knew him quite well. You talked about imposter signs. Because usually they tell us things happen when somebody commits suicide. They tell us there must have been some signs. When you look back at do you think there were signs may have ignored? And then also as a family, whenever we lose somebody, even if it's a normal person, we tend to blame ourselves. Oh, maybe we should have taken the hospital. How did the family deal with that? I wanted to hear more from you about how you dealt with that.
Okay.
And then the question of suicide. When someone tries to commit and doesn't succeed, there's always the terrorists should always be on the lookout
Yeah.
for second and third attempt. Can you tell us more about that? And of course, that affects the lifestyle of the person.
Yeah.
Because we have to always be around them.
Yeah. Remind me your name again?
I'm Helen. And then also from the PR fraternity, we are asking, is there anything that you're doing as a family to take ahead John's legacy?
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you.
Just to give you a little bit of a zoom in as well, Helen covers about Parliament.
Ah, okay.
She's one of
the
big people I look up to in PR.
All right.
Yes. I'm on a group of PR only, and she posted that. Very many people decided to join in.
Wow.
And I hope we've been following up. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm Jesse, and thank you for sharing your story. Just wondering, what would you have done differently?
Yeah.
I mean, you asked John, and I asked that. I have a couple of brothers. We ask these questions, and you get those answers. What could you have done differently without looking like you're suspecting something because there was nothing to show? There are many people we meet, we ask them these questions, they give us the answers we get, and we move on. The next thing you know, someone is down the drain. Is there anything you could have done differently?
Yeah, good.
Thank you so much. I think
Great. Wow. Wow. Thank you. I take those? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to try to see if I can remember the first ones, then come back through. So first of all, thanks for the engagement. I think somebody hinted on the 40 plus. And I think they said they're bipolar. And I think the whole androgen, right? And the whole andropause issue. I'm trying to remember what it is, but I think what we're trying to tell them is that they're not alone, right? The 40 plus group I know feels a bit of an unusual pressure. And there are many issues, by the way, around these conditions. And again, like I said, we have better experts probably even listening in right now who have confessed that they're happy to share and share more knowledge. But basically, people are going through all sorts of disorders. I think the person mentioned that they're bipolar. I know that there's, like we mentioned, the sad man, stress, there's anxiety, there's depression. And depression is really the feelings of hopelessness, persistent sadness coming up. There are people going through PTSD or that, it's really a complete trauma-based disorder, either from war-torn areas, they've gone through some traumatic situation. There are people who are going through acute stress, they're just stressed, basically, and substance disorders, and of course, bipolar. But I think, and this will run through most of the questions here, we need to get professional help. I keep telling people that, for instance, I'm not a counselor. I'm not a professional counselor. I've got people call me sometimes, but I can't help. I don't have the proper skills and the proper, sort of training to make it happen. So sometimes I don't even have the ability to follow up because of my job and everything. So I've sort of told people that I wish we could forward the right names and people. And I think on this group, I'll request that we really try to forward the psychiatrists who are on the group. Let me say this also, even as we answer most of these questions. Doing my research, I found the recent report in 2022, there were only 53 psychiatrists. There may be 70 now, for instance, right? 53 psychiatrists in Uganda. 53 for 50 million people. Basically, what that means in terms of mathematics is that one psychiatrist for 1 million Ugandans. We don't have the infrastructure or the resources to actually deal with this problem. 53 psychiatrists. And yet the reports are telling us 1 out of 3 Ugandans are probably struggling. So if we do the math, so let's say, okay, 15 million people are struggling. But 15 million people with only 53 psychiatrists tells you the challenge of the problem that we have right now. But I think it would be important to share some of these contacts. Serenity, I think, I forget, there are like 3, I should have just posted them together, that have been very, very helpful with, and some are very specific for alcohol, others handle diverse issues. But I want to just tell everybody, by the way, Butabika is not what everybody thinks. Butabika does a lot more. It's just that we grew up with a stigma. Everyone said, when you're not doing well mentally, you'll say, oh, you're Butabika. Or we thought it was the guy in the uniform who has escaped and is in the streets running around, right? So there's a stigma around what Butabika can do, but Butabika is actually well-funded, I'm told at least, and it is running well. I think one of the best facilities in the health ministry right now. And they handle all sorts of people. I visited the place once and I found an old boy, and he's now doing fine. He's doing well, and he's a solid guy. He's a really, I was so touched, but he told me, I'm here, I'm almost done, I have another week or so, and I'll be out. And he's up and about, he's a family man. So actually, Butabika can give you help. But I think it's the whole fad we have put around Butabika that becomes an issue. So I think it will, and this will answer most people, we need to get professional help. Professional help is extremely important. I wish the professionals could post more of their contacts. Somebody could post links for people to get help. I usually advise that if you can have a mental health specialist who is also has a spiritual lineage, right? So that you have both, the person has both approaches, both mental health, but also understands the things of the spirit. I found that that person is more effective, at least for me. That's what I found. And this is why I say that, and this is very quick, it's sort of theology, but it will answer something here, that a man is a spirit who has a soul. The soul is the mind, the heart, and the feelings. That's the mental health element. But they live in a body. So we are three in one. We are a spirit. That's why when someone passes on, they don't say that he is here. They say these are his remains. He is not here right now because he is a spirit man. We are spirit men. When the spirit man has a problem, where does he go? He goes to church. He gets help. He goes to the place of faith and gets help. So if we go for help for the spirit man and the physical man, the body, we also go to a doctor. Why not that third element called the soul, the body, the emotions, the heart, the mind? Nobody seems to care for that health. That's the mental health element. So go to the hospital for physical health. Go to the church for spiritual health. Also go and get help for mental health. So it's been a forgotten element of our lives. When you have a heartbreak, you just go and sleep, or you go and get a drink. You get a drink, right? And it just multiplies. Then they say the guy is a sad guy. He's just sad. There are people who come to work, bosses who come to work. And these days, because I'm alert, I would watch maybe the last 1 year. I can almost pinpoint and say that one is going through an issue right now. Why? Because like Helen raised, now my antennas are up. The signs are now visible. Now, some of the signs that you have from people, and I'm going to sort of answer sporadically, the signs that you see, people, number one, generally begin isolating themselves. Whenever you have a family member, and I'm also answering Jesse, what could we have done better? I wish I knew these things before. I wish I knew this even a month before my brother passed away. I didn't know. There were no talks like this that would give us this sort of advice, I think. At least I never looked. I would see mental health. I just log off. I'm thinking this is not for me. So I was naive. I was ignorant. I didn't even know how to help my own family member. But this is what I'm saying right now, is that basically there will be isolation as a sign. If you have a friend, your old boy, your old girl, your family member, you have meetings, they never show up consistently. Number one sign. There's got to be a reason why you're not showing up. I mean, no apology, nothing, just don't show up. Or you have excuses for every meeting. Every time you're supposed to meet is a story. There's an excuse, right? Let's mute that. So basically you have whenever you see a challenge around people who are absent, just know right away that you have a challenge. And they'll have excuses, by the way. They'll always have excuses about why they can't come, but interrogate that deeper and do it. Very unusual. I mean, weight gain is understandable. We've all gone through that. Or weight loss is understandable. But if you have sudden weight gain, sudden weight loss, interrogate that a bit further. I think Helen was asking, right? Interrogate those sort of signs very quickly. You have people who suddenly are talking, but they're posting things on their social media about regrets. They are in a regret mode. They are, I wish. They are sour graping a little more than they should. I think those are telltale signs. So Jesse, I wish I knew these things better. I wish I knew some of these things a little earlier. There are people who have insomnia. They're struggling with sleep. A guy tells you that I just don't sleep. Check it out. Please double check. So let me just sort of switch. But Helen also mentioned legacy for the PR. By the way, we had an event recently with some young people around his marketing space.
And it was wonderful, but it was small. And then I think the Institute of I think Media Studies at Makerere is going to begin some annual shows. What they call them? They're called. You come together and you kind of talk about a topic. I forget what we call those in the academia, but memorial lectures. They're going to be memorial lectures. Yes, so that's going to happen. But I think part of his legacy for me is just going to be talking about this. I feel like even just being here, I could have let that go. I'd have been angry. I'd have been embarrassed. I would have hid my head and just hoped that Kampala forgets our story. But I think part of his legacy is telling this story. That if 1, 2, 3 men or women can be saved just by it, and I got that message from a friend who said, when I heard the testimonies, I was contemplating giving up my life, and I have picked up myself. He's a great guy. He is a handsome guy. If you saw him, you'd never sense the troubles he's going through. But the guy told me, I now picked myself up. After John, I'm now moving on. I think the legacy for John is that we speak hope to people, that we bring hope to people who are struggling. We speak hope to people who are really about to give up. Those 40-something-year-old people like him who felt like, I'm disappointed, I haven't made it. We need to speak hope into their lives. So that's part of the legacy. And I'm not just going to touch quickly on this. So again, I think I mentioned that, where do you go? I think Farouk asked. And I think I've talked about the symptoms. I've talked about the signs. But how do you handle this without sounding intrusive? It's really complicated because most of us are not trained in it. In fact, for me, what I would do, I would call my young brother and say, where are you? We have a family meeting. Why aren't you here? You know, someone says, oh, you don't have some work to do. Okay. Then we say, maybe that's how he is. You know, you always think, that's how he is. I think many of us are not trained actually to handle these things. I would really recommend that you get professional help. I think the best we can do, though, the cheapest way is also having safe spaces for men, where men just come around a table like this and we talk. And Edwin mentioned something and I share my thoughts. And Farouk says something and I also share my story. The moment you feel like you're not alone, that's therapy already. That's why this friend of mine wrote and said, when I saw John's message, I realized that he was sending a message to us who have been forgotten quietly. So whenever people feel like they're not alone and somebody feels what they're going through, somebody understands that bipolar is a serious issue, someone understands that depression is a serious issue, they actually begin to get therapy. So I think men getting safe spaces is really, really important. And conversations like this are important. And I know you cannot talk about this in 2 hours and finish. We're just touching on things, and I know we must end very soon. The other area that I say in terms of remedies, guys, is, again, I really believe in the power of prayer. I may have said this, but I think if I did not have the ability to tap into my spirit and recover, I wouldn't be here right now. I feel strengthened to talk to people now because of my faith. I feel strengthened because I tap into my inner faith and say that I can make it. Today may not be the best. I may be going through this. I may be in the news for that, but I will get up. Basically, you can get up and go. So I really want to encourage people that way. Then I think of Taco Jesses. If I had known the signs, I'd have done better. I didn't know the signs, to be honest. I didn't know the signs. I was naive. I was in La La Land. There are many people, by the way, we're all living in a strange land. We just think people are okay. We think people are fine. Today, I have a team in my organization and the places I've worked. I can now identify mental health challenges quickly because of the knowledge I've been putting into my mind. I talk to a young lady or a young gentleman, for about 5 minutes, I can tell this guy might need help. I'm not an expert, but I have now opened my eyes because of information. So the more awareness we have, the more we tell this story, I think the more we can pick the signs and help somebody. I think that's basically where, I don't know if I've missed anything. But I've sort of touched on that, on the legacy, and also the suicide attempts Helen mentioned. I don't think I have a good answer on how to help people who have this, but I think this is where we need to reach out and ask people to take a bold step and get help. There are some times where you realize that the boys group won't help you. The family will not understand you. You know, I mean, I was even talkative kids who have no attention are not understood in our usual schools. But they could have a small disorder, right? The attention disorder. But nobody understands that disorder. Teachers just beat you and say, "Mwana gwe," you are a problem. They didn't understand because they had no information. Even that guy who was in Budo who had a problem. All of you have stories about the Budo guy, maybe, but the guy could have had a problem the whole time. But nobody understood and diagnosed that there was a problem. So the more information that we have, the better. Even andropause. I think people misdiagnose it and underdiagnose it because they don't know. They think it's just aging, it's just a problem. But actually, the guy, you could actually get help and get back to your full capacity. So I think it's more information, more awareness is required. Thank you.
Right. Need I say more? Let's give it up for Collin. Public members. Yes. Thank you so much, Joseph. But on the menti.com, yes, people were asked, and of course, what the 3 words would they describe how they're feeling. One says anxious, borderline, edge, helpful. I need to manage stress, irritable, natural, optimistic, shaky. Sometimes I have concerns, and then what would you say your 3 biggest worries right now are? Somebody says future retirement. Mentioned about it.
The wallet.
Kids' education, job security, relationship, business capital, parents' health.
You see finances.
Land-related issues. Retirement cash flows and friends, mortgage, name them. Another was, what does manhood mean to you? Somebody says leadership, providing integrity, giver, capability, stability, protector, be an example, being a shoulder, courage, name them. We want to thank everybody who has been online, who has shared on whatever platform that we thought would reach to everybody. I know thousands have been on YouTube, close to 100, and then over 100 plus also on the Zoom link. This conversation will be going on, I think, on the Budonian pages. Please go on the social media. I think it is Budonian on X and all the other social media platforms, I guess. Yes, you post your questions there. The admins will be answering you and also giving you help. For now, it's a goodbye. If you have, what is your action point?
Okay, call to action.
Call to action, yes.
Yeah, I think my call to action would be, number one is find a safe space where as men you can talk. I'm speaking to the men right now. I'm sure the women are implied in what I'm saying. I think finding a safe space where you can talk. The key word is talk. I think being able to talk about it and being able, number 2, to seek help. Like I said, if you can seek help from a professional who also has spiritual, I know a guy, for instance, who has really great balance. It's also a great thing. Or at least do both. Get spiritual help, but also get psychiatric help. Then the other thing is for us to just maybe a call to action for all Budonian group and entire school where I went to and other schools. That let's have this conversation more. Let's take this further. We've almost just touched on, because of time, you can only just touch on the topic lines, but you can unpack finances. You notice that finances came up a lot?
Yeah.
The first D was debt. I can tell you depression is mainly Ugandan men, it's finances. If you unpack that a lot more, it's a whole topic, it's a whole 2 hours of discussion. Let's talk a bit more. Let's have discussions. Let there be more awareness, I think, coming up. And let there be lifestyle changes also. Another call to action. Get up, walk, and talk. Sounds like a rhyme, huh? Walk and talk. Basically, keep walking as much as you can. Exercise, that means, and talk as much as you can. But also, lastly, a call to action, again, like I said, is the power of prayer. I strongly believe that there is such peace and hope and power that can come out of, submitting to a higher power. And that's the power of prayer. Okay. And that's the best I could
All right.
say.
Thank you so much, Collins. We appreciate your time. That's very, very important. And for allowing to speak to the people that tap onto the knowledge of Budonians. The last point you just mentioned about prayer, seek God. I don't think anybody else would say pray, but seeking God in whatever form that you believe in would make you feel better. The numbers are just increasing on YouTube as we are closing. It shows how the hot cake has been of a topic for tonight. But I want to appreciate everyone who has been online to make this happen. There is organizing something like this and it gets to people. Very, 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 very upset. But thank you so much, everybody who has been online. We'll carry on these conversations more and more. Somebody says, can we have these often? Budonians will have to get to this, and of course make it more engaging and more better next time. To have maybe the Zoom link, occupy like 1,000 people to go, so that we have one central place. Let me hand over back to the Budonian Command Center.
Thank you so much, Julius, for moderating this discussion. Thank you for making the time and asking those important questions. Want to thank Collin. This topic is not just a hot cake, but it's an opening to discussing a silent pandemic that we have ignored for way too long. And yet, just because we don't see a broken fracture doesn't mean a person is not suffering. And so many we've lost many because of that. And thank you so much for taking the time and not just letting your John's passing go by and we move on. Okay, that happened, that was sad more. But to wake up to what caused it and want to help others who might be going through the same, or who might have a relative going through the same, or a loved one. It's not easy in the African society. We like to keep things silent, shame, we stigmatize, we do all these sorts of things, and we like to cover up. But I think it's high time we put some of these things to the fore and discuss them, because we are losing way too many people because of the silence. And so thank you for being bold. Thank you for taking the courage to speak, to even go beyond and do the research, try to understand it yourself and see what it is we might have missed as a family. I know firsthand that sometimes the family doesn't know what to do. And many people might think maybe could have seen the signs, but actually sometimes the signs, you might all miss the signs if the person doesn't want you to see the signs. So it is not an obvious case that it's something easy to deduce or something easy to observe, but it takes a bit of intentionality, learning what it is that we need to learn to help cope with these things, to curb them. Thank you so much, Collin, for taking the time. Thank you for bringing Estella with you, Dr. Estella, your lovely wife. Estella, thank you for supporting Dr. Collin here. And I think your support has helped him, cope with this loss and with the bit of Babirukamu family. We appreciate your time, and we thank you for allowing the invite to come and speak to us, the Old Budonians. Yes. We look forward to more. The Old Budonians online, Zoom, YouTube, the non-Budonians, thank you so much for taking the time to listen in, to ask questions, to share your stories. We appreciate you, and we shall keep this conversation going. We have mentorship series, and whenever we're going to have another session, we shall communicate as we have been, and hopefully you'll join us even for others. If you're willing to come and share your story, come and give help, please do approach the All Budonians Club. We shall share your information, the psychiatrists, the psychologists, the therapists, counselors. We shall be happy to share your information for those who need it. Thank you and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for today.
Yeah, it's been wonderful.
Thank you.